Thank you so much for joining me today, John.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for asking.
Well, you're no stranger to the plant breeding world. In fact, last year you received the NAPB's Impact Award, and we're here in Guelph, Ontario for the annual meeting of the National Association of Plant Breeders. You were the, I believe, sixth recipient of the Plant Breeding Award since it was initiated in 2012, and you're actually the award's first winner in fruit breeding. Can you tell me a bit about your breeding program at the University of Arkansas, your role there, and some major accomplishments that you're most proud of?
Well, it's been an honor to spend my career at the University of Arkansas, and I've worked there since 1980 in various capacities as a research technician, PhD student, off-campus station director, and plant breeder leading fruit breeding since 1997. So 38 years of working in the program. Major accomplishments. Well, it's an interesting environment to work on fruit crops. First off, people would consider our environment for fruits labels such as hostile or difficult because of many of the challenges compared to more arid climates where fruits do really well where you don't have rainfall. The big accomplishments, number one, would be in blackberries. We've contributed a lot to blackberry production and increased post-harvest handling of blackberries so they're easier to use in shipping and that sort of thing. That's been a big one. Thornless plants, upright canes, making the plants more manageable. And finally, our primocane fruiting, which is a fruiting that allows fruiting from late summer into the fall and eliminates having to overwinter canes. And so this will expand or is expanding blackberry production for many months of the year rather than just a 6-week period, which might be what you would have in one location. Additionally, progress made in table grapes, a small amount in wine grapes, peaches, nectarines, some in blueberries across the crops.
How many years have you been doing this now for?
Well, as I said, I've been there for 38 years. I've been leading the fruit breeding program for the last 22. Dr. James Moore started the breeding program in 1964. I came in 1980 as a PhD student and technician. So a lot of years of working in the program in different angles of that. So it all accumulates into a lot of experiences and a lot of stories. Scatterings of grand successes, and in breeding, you make a lot of mistakes.
Well, and that's something I wanted to talk to you about is mistakes and challenges. You're giving a talk here at NAPB, which is called Opportunities, Challenges, and Wrinkles in a Plant Breeding Career. Can you tell me a little bit about why you chose that topic and what you mean by opportunities, challenges, and wrinkles?
Well, I chose that to be more of a career-oriented type of discussion. Some years ago, maybe not that long ago, I began a little tired of showing data. So I would really share experiences, stories, even in the classroom of examples of a phenomenon, maybe not so much charts and tables. So that's more of a reflection of some of the things I've seen over the years in my career. It's not quite over, but the big chunk of it probably is. So opportunities, things that I say came along to capitalize on that opened doors for real advances. Challenges, things that have come along that had to be looked at and said, what am I going to do about this? Address it, avoid it, or some other mechanism. And wrinkles I put in there as things that may be a little bit unexpected. So that was the idea. I guess if I was going to target anyone to really hopefully share something of maybe of value, it might be graduate students, early career people, where they might say, maybe I'll think about that in the future, or similar things. Because you find what you're looking for, sometimes you just don't identify it when it shows up.
The theme this year here at NAPB is training the next generation of plant breeders. So as you work with young people, young plant breeders, how do you educate them about those challenges that you know will be coming their way? And what's a hard decision that you've had to make recently in your career as a plant breeder?
Well, you know, I've had trained students over the years and always try to inspire them about the impact they can make. And there's a few key things that I always try to teach. One thing is spend time with your plants, follow through, do what you say you're going to do. People will remember that, and that'll get you where you're going. That's a little bit outside maybe the science of genetics or some other applications like that. I'd say the biggest challenge I have is actually more in the last couple of years. I have my new colleague, Dr. Margaret Witherington, who will continue the fruit breeding program after my retirement, is already on hand. The university chose to hire someone that we could work several years together. And so one of the keys there was like, okay, what do I do? And Dr. Worthington, what do you do? And actually this was formed before Dr. Worthington was hired, when we were forming the new position that was created. And so what to shift to a new person to allow scholarship and accomplishment and credit to be gained without the old guy always in the way, what to work on together, and what to continue that I want to finish out in my time. So that's a decision that's a little bit of a continuum. And as time goes on and I say, okay, I'm going to let this go or leave this alone or change, those are that's ongoing decision points. So I'd say that would be, it's not a problem decision, but it's one that has to be looked at, because when you make decisions that you can't change or that are kind of career ending or career changing, you have to make sure they count. And hopefully you make the right one.
Yeah, well, that's a huge challenge for anybody in any line of work, and plant breeding would be no exception. And speaking of young people and new technologies and things like that, you yourself are very open to trying new things, new technologies. In fact, you do videos which are on YouTube to help promote new varieties that are coming out of your breeding program. And for those videos, you write your own unique music that is inspired by each individual variety that you promote. You play the guitar and write your own songs. Where did that idea come from to not only make these videos to promote your varieties, but to actually write your own music for those videos? And how do plant varieties inspire that music?
Well, that's a good question, and I doubt that you're going to ask anyone else that question, because this is fairly unusual or odd to do. The original idea of that was I was trying to envision another way to try to communicate with the public about our varieties. You know, in fruit crops, generally you would go to grower meetings and talk. Extension may share information about new varieties. You may publish things like that, but getting the word out is not always easy. Our technology of communication is entirely different than just catalogs and meetings now. So I shared with our agricultural communications group about the idea of let's do something additional or new at the University of Arkansas. And someone in that office said, how about YouTube videos? As I say, I'm not sure I even knew how to spell YouTube when they brought it up. But they said, let's do that. And I said, well, sure. It sounds like I stand there and talk, and I've been practicing that a long time. So we started out in 2013, and we have a group of BlackBerry videos. Shot a whole bunch of them in one day with no script. And our editor on this, the producer, Mr. Fred Miller, produced that, and he sent one, and he said it was Primark Freedom, our first thornless primocane fruiting blackberry ever created in our world. And so he sent it, and it looked pretty good. And I said, Fred, you did a really good job on this. And I said, but this unusual music you've got at the front and back, it was some sort of synthesizer or something. And Fred said, yes, we get it music online because, you know, we don't want to have additional cost of attaining it. And I said, well, how about if I just played something for you? Maybe you could use that. So that's what we agreed to do. So a few weeks later, when we got the field work done, I went recording basically an intro and an exit, or prelude and postlude to the BlackBerry videos. And so that complemented them a little bit. And then came time to do table grapes and peaches and nectarines, the other crops, because this seemed to be going well. So I created some sort of a small amount of music that paralleled each one. The peach one had more of a blues type thing. The Blackberry Freedom, as the song is called, is more of a folk or Americana type. And Table Grape Get Along, as the Table Grape song is known as, is similar to that. So that was the original idea. You know, this is something that I learned to play guitar back in, I started when I was like a senior in high school, so over 40 years ago. Most of my time has been spent breeding plants, not playing guitar. But it was interesting to do because it inspired me to pick it up a little more and think about it a little more. It seemed to go pretty good. This made a little different video to have. Of course, one thing you watch is anybody look at them. And it's interesting on the blackberries where our presence in the marketplace is much larger. Those are tens of thousands of looks, less so for the grapes and much less for the peaches, nectarines, where we have a smaller marketplace. So you don't know how much good it's doing, but it does increase the views and gets those products out there some. And so over time, we've had a few new things. Primark Traveler was the first shipping quality thornless promocane fruiting blackberry, and I thought it deserved its own tune, so I wrote something called Blackberry Traveler, which is intended to reflect a certain amount of moving up and down the fretboard to be like traveling. Maybe a stretch, you might not get it, but that's what I intended, and it was a little interesting to go through that experience of envisioning, like, how would this tune go? I'm not a formally trained musician, so we call it writing, but it's really more like making it up. So, and the last time, the newest things we had a couple of wine grapes, and I thought, well, it'd be interesting to have something that maybe paralleled the wine grape. So Opportunity is a white wine grape. So white wines tend to be crisp and bright and that sort of thing. So theme for Opportunity is supposed to reflect that. The red wine grape we've released called Enchantment. Enchantment is a red wine, and so it's a very intense color. So I thought, well, this needs to be a little more serious. So Notes on Enchantment, as this short tune is called, is meant to reflect that. So that's a little bit of the origin of it. So it's been fun and kind of encouraging to think about music and practice, intertwine it in there. And, plant breeding is a creative process fundamentally. You really need to be open to what you might find, because as I tell students, and I tell myself, you really never know what's down the road. So this music thing, that's a little bit of a stretch, but it's a little continuation of that creative process. So that seems to make sense to me. Hopefully it does to others.
How long have you been playing guitar for now?
Well, I started when I was like a senior in high school, so that was 1974. Some people might say, wow, over 40 years, you ought to be better than that. And I'd say, well, you're probably right. But at the same time, I spent a lot of time doing other stuff. So that was the kind of the background on it.
Who's your musical idol and why?
Well, that's an interesting question. I guess I was most inspired by a guy named Jim Croce. Jim Croce was on the radio, and I used to listen to the radio, the regular radio, and he had a few hits in the early 70s. And I was interested in him, but he had someone played lead guitar, and I was really intrigued with that. So that caught my ear and really seemed to find some sort of interesting spot where I thought, that's the instrument I like, as opposed to some others. And so that was an inspiration, and then I was very influenced by some of the Chicago musicians, Steve Goodman, who wrote City of New Orleans, and John Prine, a colleague of his in the old town of Chicago, where the folk scene was really big. Of course, James Taylor is one that's a North Carolina native, is someone we all admire. And in my late 70s, I had an acquaintance back in Mississippi. His name was Mac McAnally, and he's gone on to be a 10-time winner of the Country Music Association Musician of the Year. So we knew each other back when he made his first record, and it was interesting to see someone really know how to play. It's just a young person like me. We were I was in college at the time, to see that go on. So, I'd watch how he played, because he really knows how to play. I remember going to concerts, and I'd try to sit on the front row and see where they put their fingers. And then I'd buy a record and I'd listen real close and say, fingers must be here, here, here. Now you just go on YouTube, people give you lessons. So that's interesting how that works. So those are some inspirations in there over time.
So do you have any plans to ditch this whole plant breeding thing and just become a full-time musician?
Well, I don't think so. This plant breeding thing, that's 38 years, and there's been a check every month for 38 years. And I don't really make any money from music. It's more charitable type things. Hadn't been any big royalty checks roll in from Blackberry Freedom or Blackberry Traveler or Notes on Enchantment, but some of those blackberries do pay royalties, and that's pretty handy.
That's what it's all about.
I guess so.
Thanks so much, John.
Thank you. you.